Hello, this is a little different video for this channel. I'm going to talk about my M1 Garand, and being that tomorrow is the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion, June 6th, and I was in Normandy, France this year, not long ago, so ta-da, I guess that's a feather in my hat. But the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion is tomorrow, and it just really coincides with today was the day I actually took this M1 Garand out and fired it for the first time, loaded and fired it, and made an assessment of this. And I've always wanted one of these for years, honestly. First, a little bit of history on this rifle. I'll give you the specs first. It's caliber 30-06 we'd call it, but it's a 30 caliber round that goes through. It's a pretty good size round. And the 06 is 1906 was when that cartridge first was introduced into the U.S. military. So they call it 30-06, but in World War II they called it M2 ball ammunition for the M1 Garand. It's a semi-automatic. There are no selectors, levers here, nothing. This fires semi. It'll fire 8 rounds as fast as you can pull the trigger, or as slow as you can pull, whichever. But it's semi-automatic, 8 rounds through this. And for World War II, for the infantrymen, the United States' Army was equipped with either this, and a few got the M1 carbine, which was a much smaller version of this. But this was the workhorse of the infantry in World War II. And the infantry, yeah, all right. I was infantry for 14 years and then armor for 6 years. So 20 years Army service for me. I'll get into that. It's part of the reason why I kind of wanted one of these. But it's a semi-automatic, caliber 30-06, a big round, honestly. I should have one in here, but they're all still in my car. I took it out shooting today. This gun is heavy. It is much heavier than guns that are issued today in the military that I know of. The M16, I think it was a little over 6 pounds. This thing's 10 pounds, unloaded. Now load this up with ball ammo and it's probably closer to like 11 pounds. This is a very solid rifle, very heavy. This thing is, okay, so this gun, I can tell there's a serial number right here, and I guarantee you, some guy that's either long gone, dead, 80 years ago, you know, had to memorize his serial number. The serial number is right there on this rifle, and you can look it up on a database online. That's how I found out. This rifle was made in 1944 in Springfield Arms in Springfield, Massachusetts. And checking on the operating rod and barrel that come right here, and the numbers correspond with these and dates, and so I know that this gun is all original. And a lot of like military, this is antique. The older military guns are piecemeal. You know, maybe the barrel came from another gun, or you know, but this is all original as it was issued, the parts on this. So, all right, that's the specs on this. How I came into this, on why I wanted it. I've wanted one of these off and on for years, and I don't know why. I couldn't tell you. Just that it's a classic. I like the feel of wood to my hands more than, and I've carried a rifle in the Army for years. And I like the feel of wood on the stock as opposed to the plastic and metal that today's are made of. And the fact that I was in the Army for 20 years in the infantry, I've carried a rifle in the deserts in the Middle East, in the jungles of Central America. I've carried a rifle. I've carried a rifle all through North and southeastern United States. I've jumped out of airplanes with rifles. Slept with rifles. I'm talking my years in the infantry. Rifles and machine guns. I carried a rifle in the subarctic triangle up in Alaska in the wintertime. I carried a rifle parachuted into the Yukon with a rifle, actually a machine gun, an M60. So, you know, being in the infantry is crossed rifles. This was a workhorse of the infantry. And this particular gun was the workhorse of the United States Army in World War II. So there's a lot of history behind this. And I guess I've just been drawn to it. I've wanted one because of my own military service. And I'm an old soldier, retired from service. This is an old U.S. Army rifle, retired from service. It's in good hands now. Finally, we've met. Sorry. Well, I'm going to lose subscribers by the dozens after this, if I got dozens left. So I took it out and shot it today. And my impressions were, first off, I've never loaded and fired one of these until today. So I fumble loading it because it loads through the top with a in-block clip, which isn't really difficult to do, but it's the first time I've ever put one in there, ever. So it took me I fudged around, but I got it. Single fire 8 rounds, as fast as you want to pull the trigger. And I ripped a few off really fast, and I didn't have a problem doing it. It did actually, one round got caught up in there, you'll see. And I am confident, once Sarge here actually takes the time to take this gun apart, completely field strip it, and clean every part in here properly, and clean the chamber and the bolt face and extractor pin. I know how to do all this stuff. I've never done it with these, but I'm confident I can. You can get the field manual for this right online, download it. So I'll be able to do it. I'm confident once I do that, this gun will fire. I won't have any more hung up rounds in it. I only have one hung up round. That's not too bad. Consider this thing sat around for years. Who knows, decades maybe. You know? So all I did today before I fired it, I ran a rod through it to make sure there was nothing obstructing the barrel, and there wasn't. I've got to buy a cleaning kit for it. So I ran a rod through it, the barrel, and it was clear. And I took some grease and oil and just hit the moving parts in here. And this got an operating rod. Really old-fashioned gun. But all these moving parts, I just put a little bit of lubrication and grease on all these parts in these areas. So, you know, considering it sat around and I just gave it a cursory cleaning, inspection, and oil and grease, it did pretty well, actually. And the other thing I noticed shooting this, it was louder than I thought, like I said, not as loud as my 12-gauge shotgun, honestly. It didn't kick as much as I thought it would. You know, judging from videos I've seen on YouTube, I've seen a few people complain this thing kicks. I'm a big guy, so I didn't think it kicked that bad. You know, I could fire and get a sight picture on my target, and I really it didn't kick so much that it broke. I could kind of maintain my sight picture while I'm engaging the target, more or less. And I'll be honest with you, I was a little nervous at first, being how this gun is 80 years old. I didn't know if it was going to blow up in my face or my hands or what. It did not. This thing makes me think of like an old school 6,000-pound Cadillac. You know, this gun was handmade. Nothing stamped out here. This is all milled out metal parts, all of it. Handmade. It'd probably cost a lot to reproduce this gun today. I'm sure it would. But this is all like bench made, handmade by people that are long gone, I'm sure, for service in World War II with the United States Army. Any other impressions? D-Day is tomorrow, so I think it's kind of cool that I'm putting this out. This was the workhorse of the D-Day invasion, the workhorse of the United States Army in the Pacific and the European theaters. And I don't glorify that war. World War II to me has always been just a giant human tragedy, a very dark spot in human history. It's sad. When I was in the Army, I used to have written on my helmet band, because people used to write things on your helmet band on the side of your helmet. I used to write, "Make love, not war," on the side of my helmet. I'm surprised nobody ever gave me heck for that. And I was a sergeant too. I was captain of the 82nd Airborne Rifle Team 2 years straight. Pretty good with rifles. I know my way around with them pretty well. And I don't know, it just feels like this piece of history kind of feels like a piece of my history. Seeing as how I was kind of old Army myself. And I kind of relate to it. Kind of like somebody who would... I knew a guy that retired from the railroad. And he was very nostalgic about anything railroad. Old stuff, you know, and old trains and things. Very much nostalgic. And I guess that's the same thing. Retired infantry is an old retired Army infantry rifle. So I was all smiles for like an hour after I came back with this. I've never enjoyed shooting a gun so much as this thing. It was smooth, very smooth, and understand that me loading and firing this today in the video was the first time I've ever loaded and fired an M1 Garand, let alone this. So I was a little nervous, didn't know what it was going to do. It did well, and I'm going to be taking this apart and giving it the Sarge treatment, totally clean it up. So then what do I do with it? I don't know, hang it on the wall, shoot it once in a while, I don't know. Better to have an M1 Garand than not to have an M1 Garand. That's what I think. Rifle's on safe. I've never fired one of these before. Deer flies. All right. Ready to rock and roll. Rifle's on safe. Dang, this thing's loud. I don't think I hit a thing. God, this is a lot louder than I thought it would be.